financial and mental well-being go hand in hand, and a recent report explains that. Here to talk with me today is Surya Kalluri from TIAA and Katie Riddick from High Lantern Group. Welcome, you guys.
Hello.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here.
So, could you tell me a little bit about this report that released earlier this month?
Well, thank you, Lana. We're happy to talk about the report to begin with. What we have identified in our report and in our research is that there's been an uptick in the number of individuals experiencing mental health symptoms, especially since the pandemic. And what we think this is symbolizing a growing crisis. And in particular, we think employers are noticing the impact of these challenges on their workforce and also, equally importantly, on productivity in the workplace. So what we did at the TI Institute was partnered with the Highlander Group and with Katie Riddick, who's a subject matter expert in this space. And what we wanted to examine was the effects of financial stress that has on an individual's mental health. And in particular, we were interested in making sure that the employers take a holistic approach. And I'll make it just a couple of points. What our report shows is that financial struggles, such as worrying about debt, about financial instability, those kinds of topics, to meet basic needs, can have an impact on an individual's mental health. In fact, a recent report shows that 42% of US adults say that money and money issues negatively impact their mental health. So the final point I'll make in kind of talking about this overview is that financial struggles can also trigger stress and either cause or make worse mental health challenges like anxiety, like depression, and maybe also reduce resilience against these challenges.
Katie, anything you'd like to add?
I, I think the report goes into why it's so important to understand that this relationship goes in both directions, that these stresses and financial struggles can make it difficult to make sound financial decisions. And I think that's what's so important about this report and this conversation that TIAA is leading is that there's both how you support people in their mental health to make good financial decisions, as well as supporting their financial health to help support their mental health as well.
Because as it says in the report, if you're struggling financially, you may not be as focused in work, and that can make it harder to grow financially. Are there any other very big ways that these two, like mental and financial health, impact each other?
We highlighted a number of statistics that came from our desk research and our interviews with experts. Financial stress increases the risk of absenteeism and tardiness by 34%. That's a major impact on employers. Employees who are financially stressed are 5 times more likely to be distracted by finances at work. That takes away from your time and your ability to really be productive and really be present in your job function. And financially stressed employees are twice as likely to miss days of work than their unstressed counterparts. And so you are missing an opportunity to tap into this talent pool that you're developing and you have within your workforce if you're not meeting these needs that your employees have for help with their financial concerns.
Well, a couple of thoughts come to my mind. The first is, at TIA, why is it important for us at TIA? And then secondly, Katie can also talk about what can employers do about this, given we're talking about workplace productivity. So in terms of why it's important to TIA, we're a leading provider of secure investment, retirements, and outcome-focused investment solutions. And so our mission at TIA is to help Americans secure their financial future, both in their working lives and throughout retirement. And we understand the importance of achieving this financial security and the implications of the future very much depends on resilience, on mental health, and being financially prepared. So that is why we kind of wanted to shine a spotlight on this relationship between mental health and resilience and financial well-being.
So one of the things the report mentions is a starting place for companies is to look at an employee value proposition. So can you tell me a little bit more about what that is And can you explain like how that can be a really useful tool to start examining how a company can help their employees balance their financial and mental well-being?
What a great question. So, Katie, do you want me to take a stab at it and then you can join me as well?
That would be great.
Great, great. So, employee value proposition, Ilana. If we think about companies or medical facilities or higher education institutions, uh, generally it won't be surprising that they have a client value proposition. So, what I mean by that is, if you have a higher education institution, they might say, "Hey, I'm a liberal arts college. I'm a law school. I am focused on helping women, or I could be an HBCU. There's a client value proposition, a student value proposition. If you take a hospital, for example, they might say, "Well, I'm a children's hospital. I'm a cancer hospital." So those value propositions are clear. But if you ask the same organizations, what's your employee value proposition? Meaning, why should an employee come and work for you? Not just that you're serving clients and customers and patients and stakeholders. So, so that employee value proposition includes components such as total compensation and total benefits, the mission of the company, work-life balance. And so we think this mental health component sits nicely inside that employee value proposition that will make the organization attractive for talent, for attracting talent, retaining talent, and developing talent. So that's kind of the framework of the employee value proposition. So Katie, I don't know if you want to add to that.
I mean, I think in the report, we talk about strategies for having a comprehensive approach, and I think the employee value proposition fits into that. We often think about the benefits that we have directly speaking to either mental health or financial health, but generally there's a broader impact for employees as you are looking at the many ways that employees can be affected either in their mental health or their financial well-being. We talk about in the report some strategies for thinking about these questions in a more comprehensive way. So really understanding what are some of the financial demands on your employee population based on information you have about the employees that you have. What are their ages generally? What are their aspirations generally? Are they college bound or college graduates who may have concerns about student loans? Are they mid-career and thinking about retirement planning? Having a good sense of what is valuable to your employee population gives you the ability to tailor then how you respond in terms of financial tools and in terms of mental health support and services. What are those transition points? What are those concerns that will be most relevant and meaningful, impactful to your employee population? And that's really the first step of creating a comprehensive strategy, is spending time on that essential question. What is really going to make a difference with this population, and how can I reach the largest number of employees or a large portion of employees with concerns that they are facing collectively? We talk about some other strategies as well in the report about how to then communicate what that looks like. And I think this goes back to the employee value proposition as well, is how do you communicate that commitment to employees and the value of your engagement with them. Looking at what are all those channels, what are all those ways that people learn about and access support, either for their financial health or their mental health, and then are there opportunities to draw that connection to say, accessing these financial support mechanisms, these education pieces, these other avenues of benefit for you can help you feel less stressed or feel less anxiety about retirement. That there's an opportunity to connect those narratives within an employee benefit proposition or employee benefits communication, so that people who are already thinking about these different types of benefits in those terms feel like they're being heard and recognized and seen for what they're experiencing and what their goals are. We also talk about meeting people at different life stages, that there are different places where employers have a really compelling opportunity to intervene and support employees. And then we talk about recognizing employees as a whole person. So there are goals and aspirations that employers may choose to support, and we highlight some of them in the report. I know we're going to talk about some of those examples. But where employers have said we're offering a benefit to an employee, not because it directly impacts their job function currently, but because it represents a goal that we recognize that our employee population has. So college support being a great example of that. You may have someone for whom a college education is not a requirement of their current job function, but you recognize that part of your employee population is has an aspiration to attend college. And so creating those mechanisms to help people take forward those life goals, even if they aren't directly related to job functions, is a way that some employers are looking at how they recognize and really fulfill that commitment to employees and really make them feel like they are supported as a whole person.
That's a fantastic answer. A little bit more going back a bit, one of the things that's mentioned in this report that I think is really important is while a lot of people are struggling, a lot of people don't go and go and get help that they need. So one of the ways that it's very important for these companies to make sure these supports are known is to also function as preventative care. So the people who may not know that they need to go get assistance have assistance right there and can prevent them from needing more. Could you talk a little bit more about how these supports can function as preventative care and why that's so important?
So let me take a crack at this to begin with. One of the challenges, Ilana, that we've seen in our research is that there's a gap between a company offering benefits and employees taking them on. So, for example, when I've done webinars with associates, with clients, etc., and we talk about benefits being offered, often the first question I get is, I did not know we had that. So there's a chasm between excellent benefits we might have and employee uptake. So there are two ways in which we think we can cross that chasm. The first is, as Katie pointed out, organizing those benefits by life stage, and especially at life transitions. So imagine if one is a young adult and has become a new parent, right? That's a transition, and they're looking for help at that transition. Or if somebody is a parent and has become a caregiver for their parents. Or if somebody has a tough life circumstance, like widowhood or divorce. And those are all stressful times when somebody can step in and say, we got help for you, right? So that's one natural point. And the second one that could help along with it is making sure that the front line managers are trained on this, because they're the closest to their teammates who might be experiencing these life transitions. So while HR has an important strategic role, an important service role, that one-to-one interaction between a frontline manager and an associate can be powerful in connecting the dots. So those are two strategies that come to mind. I don't know, Katie, if there are others that you want to highlight.
I think one is to build on the first strategy you mentioned, which is within the examples that we looked at for this report, and we spent some time going through some of the details around the companies that we highlighted and talking to experts about what the kind of core elements of those successful practices look like. Going back to, Surya, what you were saying about the life stages and really connecting with people where they are, one of the most successful ways to implement a program is to make the desired choice the easy choice. Make it easy for people to understand the applicability of the available support to their current situation and help them navigate to those services that will help them to be more successful. Removing barriers like potentially copays or network provider issues for mental health services can make an incredible difference in helping people choose to engage with mental health support, for instance. So making that easy choice, or making that right choice the easy choice, is a tried and true strategy. The other interesting strategy that we saw within these case studies was the pairing of incentives with behaviors. So one of the examples had an incentive for employees to invest in a short-term savings account, an emergency savings account for expenses that can be extremely disruptive to someone who is living paycheck to paycheck and has an unexpected medical expense or a car breakdown or something. And so the company paired an incentive of an investment in that emergency savings account for employees with financial education classes. So you're getting the employee to engage on something that will ultimately benefit them in terms of knowing more about financial wellness and being able to make better financial decisions, while also incentivizing an investment in an emergency savings fund that will ultimately, hopefully, help them to be less impacted by some stressful event and help them remain focused on their workplace and doing their work and being part of the employee community, rather than that distraction or that additional stress that we talked about earlier that so many employees experience.
So, kind of off of that, you list a bunch of really successful strategies that companies have implemented. Are there any that really stick out to you?
A couple, I'll add a couple, and maybe Katie can jump in as well. The one is, just be where the employees are. And so if there's a medical facility, add to it mental health ambassadors as well. So that would be one idea. The second is, we see in our research that employees trust their employers. So we could, kind of leverage the trust to provide guidance, to provide planning, not only financially, but holistically. So expanding the definition of guidance to holistic guidance, where health and wealth are two sides of the same coin, as we've established in this report, can be very important. So those are two best practices I would promote. Katie?
Yeah, I would say some employers or some people who are looking at these questions, these problems, think, I'd really like a checklist. I really like to know that I'm doing a good job and kind of check all these boxes off of what I should have. And I would say the most successful programs that we see instead do two things. One, as Surya mentioned, they tailor to the employee population. Instead of saying, what do I have to have? What are these kind of things I need to have on a list? It's really, what does my employee population need the most? What is most useful or valuable or impactful to them? And that usually comes from asking. There's an opportunity to ask employees and check in with employees on a regular basis about what their needs are. And that's a hugely valuable source of information about how to design a successful program. So asking the question and tailoring those options. I'd say the other thing that makes for really interesting programs and examples from this report are those who are willing to take a chance, to say, we observed a problem. And I spend a lot of time talking about this, especially in mental health. We observed something that's challenging our employees, and we dedicated the staff time, the staff resource, our brain power within our HR department or our leadership team or whatever, to work through what can we do? How do we solve this upstream for someone who is struggling? And take this case study example of an employee with this particular set of challenges and figure out how we make their life easier or better or be more supportive. And then see if it works, see if it helps. Spend time implementing a high quality program and see what the feedback is. The most impressive versions of these programs that we see are ones that are really committed to saying, we see this problem in our employee population and we're here to do something about it. And we want to try things. And then luckily a lot of those programs do really interesting work and help a lot of people, and then can be an inspiration to other organizations who are also trying things, who want new ideas, and hopefully it goes on and spreads as a way of supporting employees.
And one last point I'll make is about, and we've not had a chance to talk about this, is stigma. There's no question that stigma associated with this challenge, and part of leadership and part of best practices is going to be to, kind of start eradicating that stigma, and that's going to come from the top, making it comfortable to talk about it, in large settings through business resource groups, through employee resource groups, etc., so that people can talk about this, share their experience with like-minded folks, and then avail of that.
You kind of stole my last question from me, which was, is there anything I haven't asked you about that's super important to this report, or just the topic of how financial and mental health intertwine that we haven't talked about yet? So you got that covered with stigma. Is there anything else either of you'd like to add?
I would just add on to that any leaders in organizations who are thinking about how they show up and talk about their mental health experiences, their financial health experiences, any of those things as they relate to their employees, their direct reports, or their manager, the people that they manage. There are two elements to talking about that. You talk about your experience, and then you tell people about what helped. What did you access? How did you do it? And what that does is show you can be successful in an organization, even though you recognize you might experience a mental health challenge, or you might have had stress or anxiety around different issues. And that's very relatable. It's very human. We all experience these things. But I think sometimes we need to see that we can access service and admit that we need something, we need help, we need support, we need, to be coached on how to do something, and that we can still be successful. We don't have to go it alone. We can use these services and the support and be even better versions of ourselves.
And what I'll say is I'll change my researcher hat to a manager hat, right? So if I'm a manager, how would I approach this? And we've all been trained as managers to say, we manage what we can measure, right? If I can't measure it, I'm going to find it very difficult to manage. So one of the things that employers can do by shining a spotlight on this is to say, what is the extent of the problem, right? And it's a carefully constructed approach to size the problem. So for example, if I said in a survey to employees, are you a caregiver? I'm going to get one answer, but it's going to be a low answer because most people do not think of themselves as caregivers. They think of themselves as doctors, as physicians, as engineers, as technicians. But if you instead ask the question, did you take mom or dad to the doctor last week? A lot more people are going to say yes. And guess what? They're caregivers. And so by measuring the extent of the mental health challenges that the workforce is experiencing in a realistic way, gives the manager an opportunity to say, I can address this because I know the scale of it. So measurement would be the last thing I would add.
Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me about this. This is a super important topic, and I've definitely learned a lot, and I hope the readers and viewers at Retirement Daily will learn a lot as well. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to speak with me.
Thank you so much, Alana.
Thank you.